Welcome to the podcast today, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. First thing I want to talk about is marijuana, because it did pass with, a majority, quite a bit of a majority.
Yep.
Which I'm not really surprised. I knew it was gonna. If they put it on the ballot, I knew it was gonna pass. Medical, at least. I wasn't too sure about.
I thought medical would pass, but the recreational was surprising.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, when you step back, it's a 50-year campaign to legalize marijuana, so really no one should be real surprised.
The legislation for all the talk about what the laws are going to be and stuff with it being legalized. Anytime marijuana becomes legal in a state, we get big companies that come in that are franchises that open up.
Absolutely. It's big marijuana. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. If the legislation made it friendly for locals to grow and to open up
dispensaries.
Dispensaries.
Yep.
It'd be kind of good for small business around here. People who dreamed about having their own business in marijuana. They're even in botanists. Like, we're next door to Flowers of Leroy. I'm pretty sure they might do something.
Yeah.
You think they're going to make it friendly?
Well, it's really early to tell.
Mm-hmm.
I do get a lot of questions about it. I just have to say, first of all, the state has to act during the legislative session coming up. There's a couple of waypoints along the way. In July, the possession of small amounts of marijuana will be repealed.
Yeah.
And then in 2022, then the legislature has to have a plan for how cultivation and business in the marketplace and all that type of thing will be done. And I understand there's going to be some input from the cities on how they zone and that type of thing. But the more people I talked about it, the more I find out that a cultivation operation is a multi-million-dollar operation, and there's really, to me, at this early point, there's no reason to believe you're going to be growing marijuana in your backyard and getting that to market because of the regulations and the taxation and all of the things of that nature. And in the beginning, everybody wants to ask, because I was a police officer before and police chief, and everyone wants to ask how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Well, I assumed legalization of marijuana was inevitable, but I just wanted us to be the last state, because the more examples we can learn from and how to implement and how to maintain and all of that, I think is very important for our citizens.
Yeah. So
Colorado is one, since it's so close, we've always looked at, and we get to talk with Colorado officials. Mm-hmm. There was two phases there. There was medical marijuana and then recreational. And so there are some consequences. But on the tail of a 50-year legalization campaign, if you say, I have data that says X, Y, and Z are occurring because of marijuana, there's enough people out there who've been subject to this 50-year campaign that they just say, oh, that's not true. So the data is being dismissed, the science of it is being dismissed, but there are consequences. And, for people in their 50s and up, they may have been exposed to marijuana in school or in their younger life, and the marijuana of today is not the same marijuana.
It is not.
So I'm pretty sure you could smoke a round bale of that back then and be okay, and today you might eat a couple extra cookies and end up in the emergency room. I mean,
we just had a talk, one from Black Hill CBD and one from Rushmore Compounding, because they sell CBD and they're very familiar with how it helps for medicinal purposes.
Yeah.
And they said in states, the hospital rates, the ER rates do go up because people are doing too much.
Yep.
And it is, people need to microdose at first because it is strong stuff.
Yeah, and there's an effect on the adolescent brain that has not gotten adequate consideration. And so you say, well, yeah, but the rule then will be 21 and up or whatever it's going to be.
That'll be the law, but I mean...
Well, that doesn't matter. I mean,
yeah.
you got people giving their kids marijuana today. They're not going to stop giving it to them when it's legal.
Well, yeah, there is no win-win situation with the youth, though. I mean, they're going to find it and they're going to do it. Like, I remember back in the day, and that's also what I talked about, because when we smoked back in the day, like when we were in high school, it was like the kids now are more responsible than we were, because we were missing school and doing all sorts of stupid stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, at least the kids make it to class.
Well, in a typical year, they do. Not this year.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about that real quick. Let's talk about school, being level 3. Mm-hmm. It's going to be tough for parents trying to find what to do with their kids and stuff like that. I see a lot of talk about that.
It is. And first of all, I need to get out that the mayor does not control the schools.
Right.
And there's a lot of people who get mad at me for closing the schools or demand that I reopen them or whatever. I have zero influence in that. I have a monthly meeting with the school superintendent. Uh-huh. We don't spend any of that time telling each other how we should do our jobs.
Okay.
So this is a school superintendent, school board platform that they're using to open or close schools based on the virus. But yes, today, especially in South Dakota, where a high majority of either single-parent homes or two-parent homes are working, mm-hmm. they have come to rely on those 6 or 7 hours of school time as a time to get their work done and essentially provide education and daily supervision of their children. Yeah. So now that that is not an option at the moment, then now we have a daycare problem. And then we have daycares.
Yeah, daycare shut down or what?
Well, no, I mean there's too many kids for daycare.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure they're pretty all full.
They're full, and
open.
Some of them have closed and are retooling, redesigning to try to keep the spread down and that type of thing. And so that puts an extra burden on the parent. And frankly, some of the parents don't make enough money to work all day and pay for daycare all day. It's almost a wash.
Yep.
But so there is difficulty there, and but frankly, going to level 1, level 2, level 3, watching stats go up and down and so on. I mean, I question whether we're going to see school open back up again this year. It's just, it is the weirdest season of our life. And
yeah, it is.
And I mean, I said it jokingly, all my great ideas come first in the form of a joke. And then I realize how maybe viable they might be. But my first suggestion was to take these classrooms, which are already small and already overcrowded, and literally build a plexiglass wall between the teacher and the students, mm-hmm. so they can see each other and hear each other, but so that the teachers are breathing completely separate air. Oh. Because the reason that school is shut today is because of the teaching staff being out on quarantine.
Right.
And there are studies that seem very consistent that younger people, especially grade school kids, do not spread the disease as easily as adults. Mm-hmm. So the older the child gets, maybe there's a higher rate of spread. But I would wall those teachers off, and it sounded ridiculous at first, and then as when 2020 goes on, the more it goes on, the less ridiculous that type of thing sounds. It's a bum deal.
This will be out on Thanksgiving. So.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're going to make this a Thanksgiving episode.
Well, happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
I hope you're enjoying your Thanksgiving dinner with a small family, small group, being careful and, not having the whole neighborhood over.
Man, it's been such a horrible year. I think last time I got to hug my parents was in January, February, mm-hmm. and I've only talked to them across the driveway. That's it. So it's rough, man.
It's a damaging year, and but I mean you can see an end to it. There's multiple vaccine trials going on. 2 of them have emerged now with very high efficiency rates, and those, at least one of them, I think will be available before the end of the year. The others will start coming online, and this is a ballpark guess because what I've learned is that no one should predict anything in 2020. But it seems logical to me that the vaccine will be available to the general public in spring.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I think we'll start to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Boy, I can't wait. I am so over it. Quite a bit of friends my age who've all gotten it. So
yeah, and if you're 25 and good shape and you get it and it's no big deal. Plus, the numbers keep moving a little bit, but some have said 40 to 50% of everyone who has it is asymptomatic, don't know they have it.
Yeah,
which again goes to the argument perhaps for public masking, but so there's a lot of folks not affected. Now, we had our first case in City Hall less than a month ago.
ooh,
So we've done a good job shutting down traffic, limiting meetings, spacing everything out, cleaning, disinfecting, all of that.
is that when you guys did the mask mandate for like city buildings and stuff?
Yeah, approximately following that by a week or two. We saw one, and then we saw a couple, three more, and so I mean, we've proven we're not immune. We can't stay immune in the building. So we implemented a mask mandate in city buildings to protect our workforces, and we're segregating workforces. So we're intending for the planning department to just stay in the planning department work area,
Mm-hmm.
the finance to stay there, city attorney to stay there. In case there's an outbreak, we could literally send the whole group home and protect the other workers. Because at the end of all of this, when you look at the priority list of all we do in the city, the very top priorities are providing water production, water reclamation or your sewer plant operation, public safety, and garbage pickup.
Yeah.
Those are at the top of the list. If we didn't do anything else, we'd still be able to get along okay and survive. So it's essential for us to take precautions. If the entire water department gets it, that's not a good deal.
Let's see. Mask mandate. Well, it'll be Thanksgiving, so I'm pretty sure.
In other words, tyranny in the city.
Let's talk about that.
Widespread tyranny.
You're not gonna get like you. Some people say, actually, quite a bit of people say that it should be up to the businesses and the people to make the decision to mask up, and the small businesses around here to stand up and be like, please wear a mask when entering our business,
Right.
Just keep people safe,
Right.
and that's
It's not a bad sounding argument.
yeah. Well, that would have been great, but now some people get mad at that. They're like, why isn't the mayor stepping in to make a mandate so everybody has to wear a mask? And then some people are like, hey, this is great. Mayor Allender's doing great because it should be up to us to make the decision to be safe around people.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, you're going to come out of this looking like Hitler, so it's not good.
I know. It's just, what's really amazing is that I get to spend part of the season, making one half of the people upset, and then the next season making the other half upset.
Yeah.
So let's go to the argument where this should be a personal decision and the businesses should be allowed to decide, or the individuals should be allowed to decide.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's back up a decade or two,
Okay.
and ask, why isn't it up to the individuals or the businesses to determine if it's okay to smoke? Smoking is an example, tobacco sales, tobacco industry is an example of government intervention that, if it were anything else, would have been labeled tyranny.
Yeah.
Early in the 60s or 70s, the government disallowed advertising with mainstream sources like TV and magazine and newspaper for tobacco products. So why was that? Well, because the Surgeon General, the U.S. Surgeon General, someone who we listened to on cigarettes but will not listen to now concerning a virus,
Right.
decided that this is harmful to your health. And, I've been overseas a couple times and seen in stores where they sell cigarettes, and the little Surgeon General warning that we have, Surgeon General warning, this says smoking is dangerous, if you're pregnant, or
Just a cautionary
so on
thing
and
they
so
put on
forth.
there. Yeah.
In other countries, it says cigarettes will kill you. So anyway, there was that intervention at that early stage. And then it came to no smoking campaigns and all of this type of public awareness. And the medical associations weighed in on smoking. Well, we believe them because smoking causes cancer and emphysema and COPD and all of that. So then, and then as we go through history, more and more government intervention, including, and I don't know the year of this law, but a law disallowing smoking in public places. Not only that, within 30 feet of the entrance of a public place. So that was done because it has been determined that secondhand smoke is harmful to people who do not smoke.
Yeah.
Okay, point made. Smoking is dangerous. We believe the medical experts. We allowed the government to intervene without crying tyranny. Okay, now flash forward to 2020. We've got the Surgeon General weighing in, saying masks are the number one way to mitigate this disease. We've got the CDC and the World Health Organization weighing in and saying masks are the way to go with community spread mitigation. We have our local medical associations, our state medical association, local physicians, the entire medical community has bound together and said, in order to keep this from turning into a wildfire, we need to mask up. Flash forward to this week. I have a press conference where I acknowledge that Governor Noem's campaign, or Governor Noem's position on COVID is that there should be personal responsibility and wear a mask if you want to, and that there should be no mask shaming. And all this on the foundation of liberty and freedom and all the ideals that founded America. So that's fine. And if that would work, and I'm going to give you an example of that using another state in a minute, but if that would work, we would be fine. Except this is not the case of a motorcycle helmet. Okay, now if you're under 18 and you ride a motorcycle, you have to wear a helmet. But the only person who will be injured if you don't wear a helmet is you.
Right.
The only person.
Yep.
It's not like if you don't wear a helmet, you're going to kill 12 people. I guess unless you get hit in the face by a crow or something on the highway. But now, keeping the smoking analogy in mind, we go to this viral spread. It has been determined by all of the sources that we listen to in other years that wearing a mask is beneficial because it prevents
droplets,
reduces your ability to infect others.
Yeah.
They have said that a little paper mask, a little cloth face covering will not filter out the virus from you.
Right.
But it will keep your respiratory droplets inside your mask. It will greatly reduce your ability to spread the disease.
I think it's a sense of security, like the mask,
It might.
It's not 100% foolproof. It's not a bulletproof vest. It's kind of a sense of security for other people around you. That's probably pretty much
Well, that is today because there's some stores that have a mask mandate because of a corporate decision. Mm-hmm. So Walmart, for example, you have to wear a mask in Walmart.
Yeah, if you don't wear a mask, I think you got to wear a shield or something.
Yeah,
It's going to change pretty soon.
And so people go there because they feel safe. Mm-hmm. However, when they get there, they might find a whole family of mouth breathers who are not wearing a mask.
Oh, there is.
and because of freedom and because of all these other things.
Yeah.
Well, then that irritates me because, I don't believe in having a rule that you're unwilling to enforce.
Right.
So either enforce it or take the sign off and be fair to the people who are shopping there.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, as it concerns coronavirus, COVID-19, the 2020 pandemic, all of the people who we normally take the word of, they're all a bunch of political hacks, all part of a government conspiracy to get Donald Trump out of office.
Yeah.
All part of a conspiracy for China to take over the world, on and on and on. I mean, I have heard it all. And in fact, I got lambasted after a press conference earlier this week because I referred to Joe Biden as our president-elect and someone who will be sworn into office in January. I got accused of spreading fake news and that Donald Trump will remain our president, all that kind of stuff. All right.
Yeah, I try to stay out of politics because that's just a bumpy road, so that's why I didn't really do anything.
And, you know, political debate is one thing.
Yeah.
But this is political hatred. When you learn that your neighbor is different than you,
Yep.
You do everything you can to avoid that person, and you badmouth that person, and you know, they are not fit to be your neighbor anymore.
Yeah, about that. Let me rant on here for a second. So, Code of Territory, they will just drop something, and they will take no, they won't monetize how their comment section is just bringing absolute toxicity in our city, and everybody is just throwing jabs left and right.
Yeah.
And it does cause separation in our city. You can try and clean it up. It's the people like wake up in the morning just to hop on, just to talk shit left and right.
Yeah.
And it's they come up with these fake accounts. So, you know, oh, I don't want it to affect my job, blah, blah, blah. Well, shut your mouth. It's like you're making these fake accounts just to do this. And Code is not really doing anything about it. But around the United States, I did a lot of research. They are actually 1 week out of the month for whatever stories they have for that week. They shut off their comments for 1 week just to kind of help.
Cooling off period.
Yeah, let the city kind of reset for a minute, and oh man, I can't comment on this. Oh,
Yeah.
And then they'll have to share it on their own and make their own little statement.
Yeah, the public commentary is not helpful in 2020 because it's people need to vent.
Everybody's got an opinion.
And there is, without a doubt, a mental health issue that has emerged in 2020 from the general fear and uncertainty of the virus. Also from other people like the government demanding you do things differently. Stores putting up signs.
Well, nobody's really used to it. It's a weird year for just to get used to.
It is, but we're 9 months into this pandemic, and our daily cases still get front page above the fold. It's at the top of every news agency. It is constant. It's a constant barrage of death and doom and gloom, and the human psyche is not built for that.
No, just constant negativity when you're online too.
So there's depression, there's anxiety, there's this splitting where you evaluate everything now based on one simple thing: is it good or is it evil?
Yeah.
And we're losing the middle ground, and we're losing the ability to tolerate people who are different than you. In fact, we have national news commentators who are saying that they've had to purge all of the Republican friends in their life because they're so dumb and so toxic.
Yeah, there's a lot of journalists that are biased because they want their information that they stand behind just for one. And that's not what a journalist is. A journalist, you don't have one side or the other. You state your facts for your news, and you let the people make a decision. That's about it. You just stay out of it for that moment, and then take a step back and do what you want, like on your own platform, but not the news.
It's hard to watch. And then the difference between now and 30 years ago is now news has become a competitive industry.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid growing up, at 10 o'clock and 5 o'clock, you get the news on TV. Mm-hmm. And Dad would, sit by the TV and watch the news, and that's where we were informed about the most important things going on in the world. Mm-hmm. And now we get informed if Beyonce buys a new dress, or and it's like it's heightened the apparent importance of all the trivial things in life, and it's put them all in one big basket with the very important things, and it's made all of us experts in the evaluation of the validity of news, even scientific analysis of whether a vaccine is good or not, whether a disease is real or not. And it's made, honestly, it's made a large portion of our people in America and in our communities susceptible to believing conspiracies.
Yeah. I just went out a couple days ago and had a beer with my buddy down at Lost Cabin. And we were talking. He just got over the Rona like a week and a half ago, quarantined. And he's like, man, there are people that just don't want to come around me, even though he's over it and he's fine. And he did his tests to make sure he came out negative. But it's kind of weird around here. Like, people treat you like you got HIV or chlamydia or something like that, not COVID. So it's just like,
no doubt.
It's a stigma that goes around with the COVID, and once it's done, it's done. Like, return to society.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's a bizarre time, and that's what I worry about the most. And just to interject this off the subject, the only political position I feel is useful and manageable for my personality,
right,
is local government, where there are not party lines.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine being elected mayor and then immediately discounting half of the population because they're the wrong political party.
Yeah.
And the fact is, I'm a Republican.
Right.
I've been a Republican all my adult life. And I would even, this will make some people laugh, but I even consider myself a conservative Republican. I don't believe government should be anyone's savior. Mm-hmm. I think that government spending has to be justified to the people who are funding it. I think that we should stick to the basics and provide additional value to our taxpayers. However, I allowed kids to have free rides on buses.
Yeah. Rapid
ride buses. If you're a kid, if you're under 18, you can get a free bus pass and ride that thing all over town year-round.
That's awesome.
And that absolutely in one day made me a liberal. You're a liberal. Kids need to know how to sink or swim. Well, that's all fine, but the other side of it is this, that a kid that never leaves his neighborhood, grows up around the only influences he knows, will end up being a product of that neighborhood. Mm-hmm. A kid that can't get to the library or can't get to a friend's house to do schoolwork or to have a social time or whatever else, that kid's going to be a lesser contributor to his own life, his own family's life, and to the community. So there's a return on investment for things of that nature. But that wouldn't be important to the hardline, super far right Republicans, because that's something for free, and nothing should be for free. Well, there's a greater analysis, and so I can't imagine being in a partisan political position where it would be a sin to cooperate with someone from the other party.
Yeah.
And the fact is, people don't know what party I belong to. If they ask me, I tell them. But and when I'm listening to a group of citizens, I don't know what party they belong to because it's not important.
Yeah, I'm torn. I'm not religious, and I'm not on one side of any political place. Mm-hmm. I get so confused when everybody tries to explain everything to me about politics and what's going on, because some of it's, BS, and then some of it's true. So, but I do see some of the Democratic stuff good and some of the Republican stuff good. And then I don't know. So that's why I stay out of it, because I can't make a solid decision.
Right. But you probably have come in your life to think you're a decent guy.
Sure.
That you've done you do the things every day that are better than the things that are worse.
Oh yeah.
And
stop going to jail.
But you also know who you are.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Would you feel comfortable living in a community where every other person was exactly like you?
Yeah, no.
No.
Yeah.
And neither would I live in a community where everyone was like me. That diversity that we find, the diversity of thought, is one of the most important cornerstones of democracy, because you get to hear other views. And as you know, as a grown adult, and as I know as a grown adult, I have come up with some pretty dumb ideas in my life. And
that's good.
In fact, one of the worst mistakes I ever made in my professional life was when my advisors around me all agreed with me on something that they knew was wrong.
Right.
And I
They
went
didn't stand up and talk to you.
right.
Yeah.
And that I consider that a personal failure because I didn't cultivate the right group of people to keep me grounded. Because I'm only one set of eyes and ears and one brain.
Yep.
So, and I would also say this, that how you choose to run your household is really how the government should be choosing to run the government. The first concern in your household should be keeping it safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
The second concern should be being able to flush the toilet and get water out of the faucet and find some food to eat. And, you know, you have your list of priorities, whether you write them down or not. In fact, no one writes them down. But and so those are the things that are also essential to the government.
Yeah.
Now, is it important for you to get along with your neighbor? Well, I think it is.
Yeah. It's kind of tough when you do get a house and you don't get along with them. It's a pain in the ass.
And it's important for America to get along with other countries. So there's a lot of parallels between managing your household and managing your government. And so, you know, if there's a smoke alarm in your house, if it smells like smoke and there's a smoke alarm, you tell your kids to get out. Well, you'd probably be surprised if one of your kids stood up and said, "This is tyranny.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stand up and I'm not going to leave this house. It's tyranny."
Real quick, let's take a break. We'll be right back right after this.
Hey, this is Black Hills Podcast. I said block. If you're interested in sponsoring an episode, I stuttered. Okay, if you're interested in sponsoring an episode, email us at blackhillspodcast@gmail.com. Subscribe to Black Hills Podcast on YouTube and like our page on Facebook. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Black Hills Podcast. And to listen to us, you can listen to us on Spotify and iTunes. If you'd like to support Black Hills Podcast, click the link and either support via PayPal or Venmo. And also to support the podcast, we've got some awesome merch here. Black Hills Podcast is a community-based project funded by viewers like you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, when you hang out with too many like-minded people, you don't really. It's boring. It's a boring life. Like, two of my best friends are Native, and we, like, one of them's religious and one of them's not, and then there's me. And we just, you know, we don't agree on everything, but you know, we love the fact that we learn from each other, all sorts of things, and we love to butt heads, but it kind of makes life interesting.
And when you've mastered the art of being able to discuss an issue with someone who has an opposite view, and at the end of that discussion not think they're a lesser person, then you're a good citizen. You belong in a democratic republic like America. You belong here. You belong at the voting booth. You belong in public office. You belong doing as much as you can possibly tolerate for your community. If you're the type of person that only hangs around like-minded people, disallows opinions different, then you should just stay home.
Yeah, one of my friends is a flat earther too.
Oh my gosh,
I love that dude, but I would have a
riot. I would have a riot with that guy. You know, I mean, there are different people for a reason. It's no accident.
I mean, if we didn't be able to. Some people believe in Hinduism and then Catholicism, Christianity. It doesn't matter to me. Like, go for it. I love that. And I love hearing about all the different stuff because I can't consume enough information. I get it from my friends. It's great. It's better than watching YouTube. Having a conversation.
Well, the difference is that what America seems to demand today is acceptance.
Absolutely.
I demand you accept the way I feel.
Yeah.
Or you accept my view. That's nonsense.
It is.
But what we should all be working toward is tolerance.
Yeah.
I should be allowed to have to listen to your opinions and your position on life and allow you to have that without any conflict with me.
Yeah, so many people get offended about anything these days.
Oh, for sure. And you know, that's and the fact of the matter is in my social circles and in my family, I assume the role of an antagonist.
Mm-hmm.
I pick on people's weak spots to make fun and to have a joke with them, and everyone expects it that knows me.
Well, you'd have been a great comedian because that's what they do.
They all give it back to me.
Yeah.
You know, it's that's how I choose to live. Now with a total stranger, sometimes I'll address a crowd in that same way. I'll
Right.
pick people out and make a little fun and that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you, 9 times out of 10, it works beautifully. But that 10th time
Yeah.
sometimes can be a doozy.
It's just a
So,
bomb.
yeah.
You moved here in '85, right?
Yep.
That was like the punk rock era. Yeah, like
I'll take your word for it. Yeah.
Late '80s, early '90s. It was the punk rock era. Like
Yeah.
there was punk shows everywhere. They had the Pomp Room, the Atomic Room downtown.
Yep.
It was. I loved it, man. Like part of the punk rock era was my favorite.
Uh-huh.
It was great. And then here in South Dakota, everything's kind of behind the times. Then the whole gangster era started.
Yep.
So, as opposed to then, God, I think my first punk rock show was '93, and as opposed to then, all that punk rock and gangster era. Do you see like a change in the violence from back then to now? Like, was it trivial back then, and now it's like more serious?
Oh
Or-
no, it was serious then.
Yep.
It's serious now. What I think the big change is today with violence is you cannot have a schoolyard fight without a dozen people filming it and putting it on social media.
Yeah,
And that's very much a turn for the worse.
Yep.
Because that also, I think, makes violence more popular, makes it more fashionable.
I don't know. I think a lot of people are scared to get hit these days.
Well, and there's all kinds of videos you can go out and find of people being sucker punched and knocked out. You
Yeah.
know, that is a very serious injury when you're put to sleep by someone punching you in the brain. That is a very serious thing and not to be trivialized.
Yeah, that's the only kind of assault I think that, as a man, I would really call assault is if somebody sucker punched me. Like, if you don't stand toe to toe.
yeah.
Like back in the day when it was punk rock era around here and stuff, it was 2 punk dudes, like one-on-one. You know, no weapons, just fist, and then you wake up tomorrow. And eventually these 2 dudes would get along. Now it's weapons, it's, 10 of your friends, we're going after your family. It just gets out of hand and it gets crazy. And back then it was completely different violence. It was I don't know, more of a gentleman's duel.
Well, sure, at that, the bar fights and that type of thing. But, the highest murder rate in U.S. history was in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And there was a time when New York City had over 2,000 murders annually. And now they are less than 500 typically.
Yeah.
So, I mean, some of that is due to the difference in emergency health care and all that type of thing. But, I mean, we have seen worse days in terms of violence than we're seeing today. It's just different today.
You fan of UFC, MMA?
I catch myself watching that once in a while, but I don't think I would admit to being a fan of it. I mean, I hate to see an unconscious person being repeatedly pummeled by someone.
What about boxing?
Boxing, I was a bigger fan of boxing when I was younger. I used to, go inside. I'd quit playing outside and go inside when I was a kid to watch Muhammad Ali box. And it is interesting.
Yeah, you grew up in Bellefouche, right?
Correct.
I didn't really grow up. I kind of was just young there. But I didn't grow up till my 30s. Like I used to cause a lot of trouble in Bellefouche, and there's not a lot of opportunity there.
Right.
Here in Rapid, there is a different outlook on things. There is a lot more opportunity here. I did move to Phoenix, Arizona for a bit to, try and pursue some skateboarding career. But leaving and coming back, you find an appreciation for the Black Hills. Like, if you don't leave, you don't really know how great it is around here.
That's true. In fact, that happens to me in less than a week when I go to the other side of the state.
Mm-hmm.
And then I come back as soon as I get to the point where I can see the Black Hills. And then when I go out of state, it's immediately apparent to me that the people in this area are nicer and more courteous.
Yeah.
And it's a stark difference. It's really amazing to me because I tend to think I mean, look, I've been long career in law enforcement and now an elected official. I'm not always looking at the good side of everybody.
It's kind of your job.
And so I tend to think, at times I tend to think that everything is very negative. But when I leave town or leave the state and come back, I'm just wholly appreciative of the attitudes and the personality of our community.
Yeah, it's not so bad here. Like,
it's really nice.
When I lived down there was a lot of discrimination, and here, I mean, it's minor. So, what would you like to see change in our community in the future?
I would like to see an uprising of young people who choose to serve their communities. And I mean, community service can be in the obvious jobs like police and fire and elected officials, but the city also needs engineers and planners, and tradesmen and all type of people with a variety of skills. And also, I would like to see Rapid City somehow raise the inventory of housing, of houses, living spaces in Rapid City. We're behind. And the pandemic is causing a lot of folks moving here from other states.
Housing and building has gone up quite a bit.
And our city has grown since the early 1900s. It's grown every year, and so we're just not able to keep up. The bulk of the home builders are building custom homes. Mm-hmm. There's typically one developer in our area that builds neighborhoods, and that's really what's needed. We need entire neighborhoods to be built at once. And so now, 2020, we have a building supply shortage, and we have increased prices. And the scarcity of housing is driving the house prices up, which is going to leave the poorest of our community members behind even further. Mm-hmm. And so then the wages will probably raise as well, but it'll be at a far slower rate than the living costs are raising. So I mean, there's a lot of.
I don't want to get political again, real quick, but Biden, like everybody says, they want him because he's not going to tax the poor, but he's going to put a tax on people who are rich.
Right.
But the people need to think about it. It's like, who you're renting from, Yeah. I'm pretty sure he's, got a pretty fat paycheck that's going to get taxed, and then your rent's going to go up. And all the businesses around here, like for rent and the buildings and properties, all the real estate, it's going to go up quite a bit.
If that's the case, if we're going to see a substantial tax increase in a higher income bracket, that will be distributed down through all the other brackets, because the store owners will be taxed higher.
Yeah,
they're going to pass that on to the customers, the landlords, the builders, the developers, and those type of folks. And so that type of mentality about taxation really takes on the argument that anyone who makes over $400,000 is bad. And for every dollar they make, that's a dollar someone poorer can't make. Mm-hmm. And that's a false argument in my mind. Everyone's mad at Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and all these billionaires because they're hoarding all the money, and therefore there are poor people.
Yeah,
that there is enough money to go around, and when you really look at the cases of poverty, there's some very unfortunate circumstances there. Mm-hmm. But there are also some circumstances that you could look into and find a way to prevent in the future for other families. And that's poor early childhood education.
Yeah.
That is dysfunctional or damaging household and upbringing habits, abuse, neglect, and those type of things. But today, what puzzles me, and this is not an indictment on any one entity or person, but we have a university not too far from us that graduates a class of social workers every year. There are no social working jobs around here. There's not a high demand for social working jobs. So they get their degree in social work, and then they go to work at Target or Starbucks or find something else to do because they're not specifically qualified for many of the jobs that are opening at the time. Going to college is comes at a very important time in a young person's life when their brain is, starting to firm, and that exercise of accepting responsibility and being held accountable and testing yourself, all that's good. But so now you've got a thing on your resume that says you have a degree in whatever field that's not needed in your community. Now, what do you do?
You're not applying it. Yeah, you can't use it.
So you go to work somewhere that pays you $12 an hour, and then you complain about the low wages. So I think there's a disconnect between, well, I don't know whether it's school counselors, parents, university systems, the business community, the economic development foundations, but there really needs to be better coordination to say, hey, we need more computer tech jobs in this area.
Yeah.
And so universities should start up a program here or tailor a program to the regional needs. And technology and innovation is the next chapter for Rapid City.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
computer programming, coding.
Oh my gosh, there's so many things. I mean, the best jobs in Rapid City 20 years from now have not been invented yet.
Yep, that's true.
There is a move, and we've even been referred to as the Silicon Prairie because we're building the new innovation technology center downtown, where there was an empty lot before, the Ascent Center, and there's a lot going on, but there has to be someone paying attention and guiding students. And I asked a university president, why are you graduating kids? Why do you have a program like this when there's no jobs?
Yeah.
And he said, because that's what they want. Well then, is there a responsibility, or should there be a responsibility between the university and the local or regional job market to communicate?
Yeah, I can't believe kids right now are paying college tuition to go to a college that they're really not attending. They're doing online. It's so much money. That's kind of ridiculous for me that they're not right there learning. You got to kind of do it yourself. They're just giving you the program online. Right now I'm recording a lecture it's called My High School Journey, and they're helping kids with the ACT, prep for the ACTs, and they're actually going over with them what career you're going to go for. Colleges do. Some of them look at the whole ACT, and then some of them look at super scores, which is just your top scores in whatever you're going for. And it's kind of good, this program, because they're actually helping these kids figure out where they're going to go, what they're going to do, what kind of job that they're going to get in the future. And that's not a lot. Sometimes families don't go over that stuff, and it's their first day. Right. They talked with their families, but their families had no idea. And then they started doing more research, and they're like, I'm changing subjects. So,
well, in the 7th grade, I think we're browbeating our kids into trying to find out what they want to be when they grow up.
Yeah.
And putting pressure on them, and they don't know. And so, I think that whole mentality could really use some better insight and some better coordination between all the systems. But I worry most about the younger childhood education that we're getting. I mean, TVs and computers are raising many of our kids in our communities.
Yeah.
And that's not productive on the other end of things.
It's some sort of a little bit of education, but I don't know, something's being missed.
Well, it's impersonal, and it's not tailored to that child. And there's only so many channels. If the child is interested in something in particular, is he going to watch that, or is he going to watch funny videos all day?
Yeah, I think video games are pretty good because it does help your motor skills. And like this game Minecraft, it's kind of like AutoCAD, how you create things and move around. So some of these games are actually getting pretty technical.
Oh, there's no doubt there's some benefit to that. In fact, some of the top surgeons credit their time with video game systems as far as their dexterity and coordination and that type of thing.
Yeah.
But, the content of it, I mean, there's still the video games where you can drive around in a pimp mobile and kill prostitutes.
GTA.
And all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's
great.
Those have no redeeming value in the overall scheme. But, we're here. We thought all these things were good. Oh, technology is good.
Yeah.
And we're still talking about self-driving cars and self-driving semi-trucks.
That's going to be great.
I mean, good Lord. Yeah, it's going to be great, but I just hope I'm gone by then. Whoever's designing that has total faith in that a computer system's not going to have a glitch or is going to be immune to being hacked or I mean, it's
I'm half blind, so probably 10 years from now I won't be driving anyway. So I'll just love to hop in a car and be like, go home. What are some misconceptions that people might get about you just because you're mayor and you're, someone to pick on?
Well, most recently, I think people misconceive that I am without empathy or that I'm some kind of a royal elite.
Right.
And this has really come out this last few months over the homeless issues and that sort of thing. And so you put a guy like me trying to find a balance between law and order, public safety, and compassion and humanity, and someone in that circle is going to be upset.
Somebody's got to do something about it. Your race doesn't help that.
Right. And so
I would appoint somebody else to do it for you.
Right. And so I'm racially insensitive because someone else's race doesn't matter as much to me as it matters to them.
Yeah.
One thing I've always been a little jealous of with the Native Americans is that they know exactly where they came from and they know exactly what their great-grandfather's traditions were and all that kind of stuff. I am a mutt from Europe who doesn't know anything about anybody past
your history.
My grandmother.
Right.
And so, although I don't feel like I've been negatively affected, I wouldn't feel like that's a huge disadvantage every day. Mm-hmm. I do wonder what it would be like to have 500 years of family history at my fingertips.
It's crazy. I used to live with some natives at the time when I was homeless. Down in Spearfish, really nice people. The mother was a college professor at BH, and they let me stay with them for a while. And I didn't know anything really about the heritage. Coming up Mexican, completely different. So they keep their peace pipes in a room, and if you've been drinking, you're not allowed in because it changes the spirit and stuff. And I did not know any of this. And boy, did I had to go out with them, and I had to learn so much. But it's great. Like, man, I've really embraced. Well, I kind of grew up with natives too, even in Spearfish and Bell and here, and my best friends being native. I mean, I actually offered my buddy a show here on the podcast to have a native podcast, a Black Hills, Lakota podcast. But we're working on that. But there's no win-win situation being any other sort of race. It's very difficult. Like when I talk with the police here. Like we had the Black Lives Matter marches and stuff downtown. Yeah. And I just made the comment I didn't get it because here it's indigenous lives more matter around our area. Yeah. And if we're going to get to the bottom of anything, it's got to be local. And it is about the indigenous people around here. And I was like, let's get an indigenous movement going. So a couple of my friends, they educated me. They're like, yeah, we're getting on it. We're doing this. We're doing that. We're going to start doing the land that you guys are going through, which I think is a great thing now. Kind of gets rid of that, racial stigma like between each other, butting heads and stuff. And I hope it really does unite all of us in this community because it's a step in that direction. I hope so.
The whole race issue is so difficult to navigate, and I see two problems with it. And so I see this as the problem within the problem. Mm-hmm. When I find myself in a situation, I find myself tiptoeing, watching my words very carefully, not saying things, not asking questions I want, then I find that there's too much pressure, too much sensitivity around something.
Yeah.
And so, whether you're growing up around indigenous people or Hispanic people or Asian or whatever else, am I allowed to be curious about it?
Yeah.
Am I, But I find more circumstance where I get in trouble for just being honest and saying, saying something that appears insensitive. Mm-hmm. So I say I'm racially insensitive because I don't always carefully select all of my words because out of fear of offending.
Right.
And I can't control if you become offended or not. And if we only have a conversation where I only give you the most carefully chosen words, you'll never get to know me either.
Yeah. Man, I talked with one of my buddies. He gets really offended anytime racism comes up because he immediately, and it kind of shows what kind of person he is. If you get offended right away by the talk about racism, you're probably a little racist. If you're buddies with somebody, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
make it okay to joke about their race or anything like that. And that's where like, well, it's okay as long as we're friends, and I'm joking. Well, it kind of doesn't make it okay.
Yeah.
Still, it's just like it's always been a problem, and not enough people actually stepped up and said something about it. Like, no, it's not okay. Like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well, if we do have these conversations, and then somebody says something and be like, well, that's not okay. Like, oh, okay, I want to do it again. Absolutely, great. That's done. We can move on, and we don't have to, keep doing this walk where somebody's getting offended because somebody doesn't ask the right questions.
Yeah. Yeah, if you make fun of, my belly or whatever else,
Right.
I might ignore it a few times or whatever, but I might say, hey, man, I'm a little self-conscious,
Yeah.
So, our relationships as humans are weird.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned Black Lives Matter and all of that. There's so many opportunities like that to pick a position and be on one side or the other.
Yeah.
Why can't we all be on the same side? Was George Floyd unfortunate? Yes, it was. Was it a white supremacy action? I don't believe it was, because I've seen some evidence of white supremacy. But then we tend to we tend to label everything. We've changed the definitions of everything.
I think the cop was a real asshole, but
Well, in Minneapolis, PD does not have a great reputation.
there's a lot of places that don't. But it's not every police officer. Like, I've had my little do-in with a couple police officers, and I've done time in jail and stuff. But I don't hate every cop. It's just like it was kind of maybe a couple, not every single one.
Right, but if you went to Menards
Mm-hmm.
or some large store and you met a real jerk who worked there, your first inclination wouldn't be to say that all people that work at Menards are jerks.
Right.
Cops and firefighters and all everybody they're all human beings. They're all flawed.
Yeah.
And so when there becomes a staunch intolerance for something all of a sudden. If you're walking along in a long line of people and you immediately stop and everyone else runs into you,
Mm-hmm.
then they're all walking too fast.
Yeah.
So, we've changed the definition of white supremacy. Now, with some of the rants I see online, white supremacy is just being white. Well, white supremacy to me is a bunch of idiots who have rallies, and that to me is white supremacy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You don't go into a bank and there's not a desk there that says whites only.
Right. Not anymore. No.
So, and then I think we've changed the definition of racism.
Yeah.
To me, Hitler and some of the other, the ethnic cleansing actions that have taken place across the globe.
Yeah.
Are definitions of racism, and what America had here in the early days up into the 70s, where we had colored bathrooms and white bathrooms,
Right.
and colored people had to ride the back of the bus, all that kind of stuff. That's racism. That's where one race is not as good as the other races.
Yeah, growing up here in South Dakota, cowboy country, I was listening to NPR, and they were talking about Mexicans being supporters of Trump and non-supporters of Trump, and the reasons why. And this kid was talking about how cops were being racist towards him, profiling and stuff. So he hated all cops because he was over it. He's like, no, now I hate all cops. And then I'm voting for Biden because that's the only way we're going to get unity. And then 6 months later, NPR made another podcast with him. He's voting for Trump now because him and his companions in the group that are supporting whatever group, they're going to support Trump because they want to be rich and they see he's rich. And they're like, he's going to financially make us money. And I was like confused. I was like, wasn't this guy racist against cops? And now he just doesn't care. He just wants Trump now, from Biden to Trump. And he's using cops for one reason. And now he's just money. And I didn't get that. And I grew up here and, you know, I've had a few cowboys being racist towards me and yell things at my parents. And we've all ran into things, but I don't hate cowboys. It doesn't make me cancel out the whole cowboy culture. It's just a couple assholes here and there, but that's about it.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, I get it, and of course I'm white, and so I can't relate to being discriminated against, with one minor exception, which is totally trivial.
Yeah.
When I went into a Burger King restaurant in El Segundo, California, and couldn't get waited on until they called the white girl out of the back, you know. And I thought, and
That's
it
real.
it made me feel weird, you know.
That's real.
But it was good for me to hear to have that little trivial
Be on the other
exercise.
side.
Yeah,
Yeah, you were
and it was
definitely on the other
trivial,
side.
but that was 35 years ago. I remember it today.
You go down to
So
Texas, Mexico. Trust me, you'll get it.
Yeah. So you know, and I think to your point about your the guy voting for both presidents, I think the country perhaps has accepted a new standard for choosing a leader.
I think so too, and I think they come up with bullshit reasons just to have a story of why they're doing whatever.
Well, sure. You know what? I mean, if you took the names and the faces and the personality out of it, and you looked at the performance of the country from one presidential administration to the other, you would think, based on the rhetoric today, that you would say, "Oh, this person's a Republican, this person's a Democrat, this person's whatever." So there's all this, you know, all these stereotypes that go along. But the one that is confusing, you know, Trump is and was an abrasive force. He
shouldn't have had a Twitter.
He's an antagonist.
Yeah.
He calls, you know, he's rude. He's unprofessional.
He's a pretty big mouth, but
He is. There's no doubt about it. And
Yeah.
no one, even his supporters, should be able to say he is such a gentleman. He is
Yeah.
such a statesman.
I'm pretty sure they were stressed out.
Right. So he's that way. However, the performance of the country has been good.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think in this case, Joe Biden likely got elected because he wasn't Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, a lot of people did not vote for Biden, but they voted against Trump, and that's where the
Right.
votes came in.
Right. So then what's the most important quality of a president? And I would say in more modern times, it has been someone who acts presidential.
Popularity is what it is right now.
Presidential behavior,
Yeah.
where you're nice to everybody, you speak well, you kiss the right babies and shake the right hands and do things on TV that make you proud that this person is in leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe today you could be largely incompetent but a statesman and be elected to higher office. So I think we would be losing something. Now the question is, shouldn't we be able to have both? And I think the answer is yes. We should demand both.
Yep.
We should say, great, you got a good track record, you're a statesman, you're professional, you make us feel good about America, let's support this person.
There's a lot of talk about Kristi Noem running someday.
Well, that's there's a lot of talk about a lot of things. I mean,
Nobody's going to agree 100% with anybody in politics does anything. You, Noem, anybody.
right.
But I'm happy that we don't have someone that's getting walked all over. And that's all I'm glad is they're not changing their story every single time they're put on the news. They stand up for what they believe in, and that's it. And I'm glad with some, like our officials, you and her have a backbone. And that's what I'm really proud of is our state isn't being pushed around. Even though we probably haven't made the best decisions on, going on right now. But it has been a rough year. Like, COVID. You weren't prepared for this
It's
at all.
a rough year. No one wins in 2020. There's just no way around it. But, again, there's rumors out there now that I'm running for governor, and that is absolutely not true.
Oh, okay.
That will never be true. I will not do well in a partisan political environment because I do not believe one party holds all the great ideas.
Right.
And so if communicating and cooperating with the other party means that I would be a failure, then I'd be a failure.
As long as you're honest.
In my life, I've served the public for 35 years. When I'm done being mayor, I'm not going to feel guilty about walking away because I've put my time in. I would just ask other people to find a way to put some time in.
Good.
There's a lot of experts out there.
Yeah.
And my question is, well, where were you in the last election then?
Yeah.
Because the government, ideally, is made up of people like you and me from the community.
Mm-hmm.
Not elites, not people who have established themselves as any one thing, other than a trustworthy, good citizen who has an interest in the future, interest in the present, and will do their best. Because who wants to be governed by a bunch of elites? If we want that, we could move to England.
That's true.
And so we're here, and we're governed by a citizen government. Mm-hmm. Our legislature is made up of citizens. And now, we're a highly Republican state.
We are.
And it's just unfortunate that we can't work together.
How do you deal with stress as being mayor? Like, I'm pretty sure you get pretty stressed out. And
yeah.
How do you deal with it? You do yoga?
Well, that's been suggested to me.
It helps, man.
By the chiropractor and other people. But, my stress management is a lifelong learning experience.
Yeah, trial and error for sure.
So from the time I was 20s, I was probably dealing in stress. There's a lot of disassociation that takes place in those years where you don't see people as other human beings, so you don't get caught up in their emotions. You see dead bodies or tragedy, and you disassociate yourself.
Right. All
this kind of stuff. And then, it's a good environment for alcoholism or other bad behaviors. So there's been times in my life where I've dealt with it positively and also negatively. And
so you're human.
And you got to learn how to deal with your stuff, your own stuff. So today, at this point in my life, I have learned to recognize several signs that I'm being stressed because my mind telling me I'm stressed is not the first one.
Right. You get angry.
There's even physical signs that you can pay attention to, but I try to manage it. I try to, when I'm driving to work every morning, I try to kind of reassess what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Why am I driving towards work instead of away from it? Am I still in this today as much as I was yesterday? So, and then I do, everybody, including me, needs some type of outside force that can be more of a center of our thoughts and our...
Everybody needs a hobby or something.
Absolutely.
To take your mind off.
That type of thing is important.
Yep.
And, as far as being stressful, I think I'm fairly well prepared for a stressful environment as mayor because I was a police officer all those years.
Right.
Also, I raised 2 teenagers. And teenagers will test you to the core.
Oh, yeah.
And if you can make, just as a personal test, if you can make it through the teen years and get your child to come back around, you're probably cut out for public service.
That's a good tip.
And I think back on that. I wouldn't say daily, but often. When people lash out at me.
Yeah.
It is quite often. But I look back at the years when my teenagers were lashing out at me. Mm-hmm. And you have to understand as a parent that there's something going on in their life that brings them to that point. They'll tell you they love you. They'll tell you that, they're happy with their family and all that kind of stuff, but they're screaming at you like you're some kind of evil person. And that's because something's bothering them. It's not necessarily because I'm doing something bad to them.
Yeah, not every parent knows everything that's going on in their child's life.
No, and nor could a mayor know what's going on in the citizen's life. So I think
Right.
there's got to be a wide allowance for that type of lashing out, because people have their own things going on.
Yep.
And then, so I learned early in my career as a police officer that you cannot keep a list of friends and enemies, because it is counterproductive, and it introduces a sense of popularity into your job. And if I wanted a job where I was going to be popular all the time, maybe I should have taken up acting or singing or something of that nature, or being a kindergarten teacher or whatever.
Yeah, you're not going to be very popular being mayor.
No, and that can't be the goal either.
Right. You can't have everybody like you. You start doing that,
And no parent should seek to be popular all the time.
Right.
Parents have to make those hard decisions that might seem cruel, but are in fact in the best interests of their kids. Mm-hmm. That's the same thing I feel occasionally has to happen as a public official. You would never go to your children and say, hey, I'm thinking about imposing a 10 o'clock curfew on you guys. Who's in favor of it? Raise your hands. I mean, there's a responsibility as a parent and as elected official, as a public official, to weigh the evidence and make some decisions that are in the people's best interests, whether they know it or not at that moment. And that's where the allegations of tyranny come in, and that's where the allegations of government overreach and so on and so forth. I'm comfortable, I'm confident that we're doing the right things, and that when there's a mistake, when I've had a bad idea, I will be the first to own up to that. And I know from my experience that has earned me more credibility than trying to be right all the time.
Yeah, you can't, what do they say? You can't bat 1,000.
Yeah.
Nobody can.
Yeah,
So.
nobody looks back and counts how many times Babe Ruth struck out, or
Yep.
how many times Mario Andretti didn't finish first, or whatever the case is.
I've messed up a ton. Well, majority of the people I know have messed up once in a while, and that's what all makes us human. And it's good to talk to you, the mayor, to understand that you are human, and we all do mess up, and you're doing your best, at least.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to agree on everything. Not everybody's going to agree with what you're doing or how things are done, but, they could actually learn a little bit about being mayor with that. What kind of tips would you give somebody that wants to be mayor in the future?
I'll answer that, but first, I feel like I have to acknowledge that the way politics are today, it seems no one in their right mind would ever want to be an elected official.
Right.
And I worry about that a little bit, because that will attract some that aren't fit
Right.
for that role. But I think someone who has spent some time becoming self-aware, becoming aware of the community needs and values and challenges, someone who finds themselves being comfortable speaking to people, comfortable resolving conflict, comfortable enough being yelled at times,
Yeah.
and someone who finds themselves with a flair for the challenge, and who likes to be a problem solver. And if you look around, and if you've got a diversity of friends and coworkers that look up to you, and if I think, and what I just described probably fits 10,000 people in this community. That's who should be mayor.
Yeah.
And so, you're going to give up. If you're in private business and you're building a fortune over the course of 30 or more years, it's not logical to say, hey, you should stop making $500,000 and you should start, making some peanuts here and get kicked every day, that's illogical. But at the end of that successful career, that would be a person with the adequate experience and knowledge and soft and hard skills to be able to do the job like that.
Ready to sacrifice some serious time too.
If you have managed your own business, for example,
Yeah.
you can manage the city business. Don't ignore, what I would say is don't ignore the little tug you may be feeling to get involved into public office.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we're in a situation where only the idiots and doofuses want to be in public office,
Right.
then we're going to become an idiot and doofus community. And nobody should want that.
Yeah, we need somebody strong and somebody intelligent for sure.
And you need someone normal, normal.
I could
someone,
never do that.
Someone human.
Yeah, somebody human.
Someone who's willing to take responsibility and not hesitate when a decision needs to be made.
It's a lot of weight on your shoulders.
Well, sometimes it is, but should be a group. It's seen as a group effort.
Yeah. So to finish up, I got some real quick questions for you.
Okay.
Some little ones.
Yep.
Do you have a favorite local brewery?
I hate to admit this, but I don't like craft beer.
What?
And I think this is, I won't share all the details, but I think it goes back to my early drinking experiences. But no, I don't like craft beer. I think the local breweries, though, are I think I like them all as community partners because there's a huge calling for breweries in towns like ours. But I don't like draft. I don't like it.
They've turned drinking beer into more of a sophisticated type drinking because you only go for a couple beers with your buddies.
Yeah.
And when you leave, you don't sit there and get smashed. And there's not really bad vibes when you go to these breweries.
Right. And, when I've walked into some of them, I expect to see a bunch of, hippies eating avocado toast and whatever. But, there's people of all ages and all shapes and sizes and backgrounds in there. So, I appreciate that. But I drink watered down domestic beer,
Bud Light, Coors Light.
Yeah, pretty simple that way.
All right. Do you have a favorite local restaurant?
Well, gosh, dang. In a year where I've eaten out the least times in all my adult life, I like Mexican restaurants.
Oh, yeah. Right on.
And for different reasons, but I don't know that I could pinpoint one that I like. I have a favorite restaurant for lunch.
What's that?
I like going to the Firehouse for a Reuben
Oh,
or
yeah.
some of their lunch selections. But boy, that's a hard question. The best Mexican restaurant I ever went to was in Albuquerque, and it was in Old Town, and it was a really weird looking location. And I went in there, and it was I don't want to say filthy, but it was cluttered. And there was little Mexican kids walking around selling you stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand anybody or anything, but the food was just heaven in there.
Yeah, I got mugged at the bus stop in Albuquerque, but I didn't have anything on me, so they were really mad.
Yeah.
What's your favorite streaming service to watch movies on? You watch movies, right?
I do. I would have to say probably Netflix.
Yeah. Where's your favorite place to visit in the Black Hills?
Custer State Park.
Right on. Quick ones. Cars, gas or electric?
Gas.
Hunting or fishing?
Fishing.
UFC or boxing?
Boxing.
Trump or Biden?
Trump.
Mayor or governor?
Mayor.
All right. Thanks for being here, Mayor.
My pleasure.
Thanks for coming in, man.
Appreciate the invitation.
Yeah. Best of luck. For those of you watching and listening, man, have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Have a great time. Enjoy your families. Stay safe. Take your vitamins. Take your vitamins.
Yeah, be courteous and give people space. And, this is a season, and next Thanksgiving will be different.
Yeah, hopefully. All right. Take care, everybody. See you.